Live from the heart of Baylor Bear Country, the most comprehensive pregame coverage. This is Game Day Live, powered by Sikkim 365 and KWTX News 10.
Game Day Live right here on KWTX. I'm David Smoak with the Craig Smoak. Garrett Ross is today producing along with the great people at KWTX 365 Sports as we bring you Homecoming. Game Day Live later on this afternoon about 2:30. It will be Baylor and Oklahoma State. More on the history between those two in just a moment. We'll hear from a couple of players today. We'll also in a moment hear from Chad Vothering, who is at McLean Stadium on what is a beautiful day in Central Texas. Craig Smoak, I don't think you'll be surprised when I bring up this stat. Baylor football, a home record against Big 12 teams. This is since almost 2 years ago when they had that run with 2 wins at Lubbock and then in Norman. And since that time, this is who they are at home. They lost to Kansas State, TCU, and Texas. Texas Tech, Houston, and also West Virginia. Their last Big 12 conference home win was a little over 2 years ago, when they beat Kansas 35-23.
Yeah, that says home non-conference wins when it clearly means home conference games or non-conference games. That clearly is conference games that's referring to. And, yeah, it's been a long time because they have really struggled for 2 years, and we've kind of hammered home the same points in terms of the streaks that they've been on, whether it's meaningful games that they haven't won for however long or Big 12 games they haven't won for however long, or just games they haven't won for however long. And last week they were able to get a nice Big 12 win. They were able to get a nice win, and it seems like the one thing they now need to go get is a nice home win against the Big 12 opponent. So it's been a while. It's been too long, actually, and it's homecoming now with what should be a pretty nice crowd, and you're coming off of some momentum. So if not now, win. Kind of the way I feel about today's game. Is setting up as a perfect opportunity against a team that's struggling right now, not only with injuries but just with winning. And you're coming in after your best performance in probably 2 years. So, I think the streak has been going on long enough, and today's a perfect day for them to, erase another blemish that's been kind of going against them for a while now.
It seemed like I've always been able to default, like you have a default to go back to that middle of 2022 when everything looked pretty good and they were rolling, and then all of a sudden they have been in a free fall. But a big-time win in Lubbock last week against Joey McGuire and Texas Tech. We'll hear and talk with, again, a couple of players, and we'll hear from Dave Aranda, and we'll also today hear from Eli Letterman, who covers college football for ESPN, and J.J. Joe, former Baylor quarterback, Baylor radio color analyst. He will join us as well. But let's go out to Chad Vothering, and it's a beautiful day today, Chad, and seems like it'll be very comfortable, get warmer as the day goes on, but homecoming today, and right behind you at that stadium, McLean Stadium.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, thanks for having me on. And, yeah, this is a beautiful day, and just kind of, from that momentum from Texas Tech last week, I think this is a way better feeling about this homecoming game than maybe what we thought 2-3 weeks ago, especially right before that bye week. So this should be a really good day. And I think, favorably in terms of the Bears, it looks good on paper from just what we've seen from Oklahoma State. They've obviously been a little bit underwhelming, I think, compared to what they were returning onto the field. I know they've been hit with the injury bug, but it looks good for Baylor, and it could be a very good day. And this could honestly be the most important game for Baylor, depending on, what direction they want their season to go in, especially after that win against Tech last week.
Chad, what stood out to you most from that win last week?
Well, yeah, it's, we saw the same thing last year. They got the win after the bye over Cincinnati, and, then after that it kind of unraveled. But last week, Story Robertson, I think, we already knew his abilities and what he could do, but he really kind of took the reins of everything. And not to mention Bryson Washington, he's had a couple of great games already. And, those two guys, I think, on the ground today are going to be very important for Baylor. But it's the fight, too. This is a team that a lot of people still have doubted. And I think, yes, it hasn't looked necessarily what they wanted to on the field. But what stood out to me was just the fight that they had, and also just the ability that 59 points. I mean, that was like the most points they've scored in in a game in almost 2 years, maybe over 2 years. So that the fact that they could do that, it shows that this Baylor team's not necessarily put to bed yet.
In fact, in games that they should win at home and should dominate at home, we do remember that they had the loss to Texas State a year ago, gave up 42 points. They really haven't scored a lot of points. They did score 45 against Tarleton, but putting 59 up in any game in the Big 12 and then also on the road makes it even more special. Sawyer Robertson. DeQuan Finn was the starter at the start of the year. We saw him last week in a touchdown run to kind of cap things off in Lubbock, and it kind of reminded that's right. He was the starter and maybe can bring certain packages to the table. But your thoughts about how much Sawyer has grabbed onto the opportunity when DeQuan went down and the offense was struggling and what he's done since?
Yeah, well, I think the thing you're seeing is that, what we've seen from these really great teams across college football, take, Michigan last year, for example, some of these veteran teams, the guys that stick around and the guys, and nothing against transfers, because I think transfers can be obviously, very useful and valuable, but the guys that stick around in programs are going to get their shot. And you're seeing that, right in front of us with Sawyer Robertson. I mean, he's already been in the program a couple years now, and he knows his footing. He's been comfortable here, and he had great opportunities last year, and now it's finally clicking for him. And we all knew his abilities. He was highly recruited, obviously, and very talented. But now he has a little bit more pieces around him, and I think what we've seen from him is he's the guy. He definitely is the guy, and he's he could throw it. I mean, 5 touchdowns. He probably hasn't done that since high school. And, I do want to see a little bit more running from him. We've seen that ability to run. And I think, if he could really run the ball a lot today, he could probably get, his first 100-yard game on the ground in college. I think that matchup is going to be really good for Sawyer against this Oklahoma State defense.
It's homecoming, and it sure seems like if you drive around town, it's a bit more crowded than normal. What's the scene kind of like out there? I know it's still, 5.5 hours until game time, but what's the tailgate scene like? Normal as usual, or is there a little bit more going on?
Well, yeah, still not as many people, but there's definitely more pep in people's step because I think they realize that, this is a very winnable game for Baylor. And, on paper, especially second half of the 2023 season, and even, first half of some of these Big 12 games, we're starting kind of, looking at this in a negative light. But we're not looking like that anymore. And I don't think that's the outlook with anybody around here. Obviously, y'all know more than anyone when you win games, the mood around town really changes. And you can really feel that here. I think this is kind of the best feeling that we've had around Baylor football in a really long time. And they want to keep that going.
So it is a gorgeous day. And Oklahoma State, you brought them up, Chad. They have had problems at quarterback, and in fact, they felt like they maybe had it ironed out with Rangel last week, and then he goes down. They go back to the veteran of all veterans, college quarterbacks, in Alan Bowman. He's one of those that if he gets hot, he can get red hot. He also can throw the ball away to the wrong team on occasion. Who do you expect to see today for Oklahoma State, and how can they maybe force him into that?
Yeah, well, Alan Bowman, I guess, and I don't know what it is with Oklahoma State, but I don't know how old he is, 24, maybe 25. They seem to always kind of have those older veteran guys, and, Gundy's comfortable with those guys. But Ollie Gordon, he's still really banged up, and to my knowledge, I think he's still a little bit questionable for this game. And so, obviously he's been a little bit underwhelming compared to what he was in 2023, but in terms of offensively, this team struggled a little bit. Lots of injuries. They even have some wideouts that have been injured and week to week. But with Alan Bowman, he's a smart player and he's played the game for a really long time, so he definitely has that advantage. But it hasn't necessarily materialized what maybe it has, at some of his other stops that he's made. But in terms of the offense, if Ollie Gordon's healthy, then that's a great sign for him. He did really well against BYU, even though he did leave that game with an injury. But if he's up ready to go, obviously that's a huge threat, despite, that his little bit of underwhelming season that he's had so far.
Do you see or have you seen this week a little bit of an uptick in maybe not just the focus, but anytime you win, it feels good, especially when you've lost for so long? Did you sense anything from Dave Aranda Monday or even the players later in the week?
Yeah, I think we all know, Dave Aranda has definitely taken a little bit of a different approach in terms of, meeting with media, meeting with people, and, just around. He's been a little different this year, but I saw him completely different, I think, a little bit. He was a little bit more jovial. He's still Dave Aranda that we love and know, but, he was a little bit more excited. And I think you see the hope in his eyes a little bit, and you can definitely see that with the players. They're excited, but the thing that they would tell you is that this is something they knew all along. So, yes, you've seen the hope kind of, come out of, nowhere a little bit, but at the same time, they're acting like, this is what they've been able to do. And rightfully so, because, they're a couple possessions away from being 3-1 in Big 12 play. They should have beaten Colorado. They had a chance to beat BYU. And so they knew that this was feasible, but obviously now, it's openly going to materialize a little bit more for them. Chad,
I had somebody ask me earlier this week about, well, can Baylor get on some sort of a run and get to a bowl? Well, yes, if they get on some sort of a run. But I responded this way. You tell me if you think this is fair. Can we see whether or not they can even win back-to-back games first before we talk about getting to 6 wins?
Yes, yeah, and I think that is the most fair thing, because it's really easy to look way too far into the season when it's just one Big 12 win that they have. So, yes, they can do a lot with this, and this can definitely put them in the right direction. But at the same time, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourselves. And I think, obviously, we know, the second half of their Big 12 schedule definitely is a little bit more favorable. They faced all the currently ranked teams, even though, Oklahoma State's not necessarily what they were. They're still a great team. They're still a team that has lots of talent. They're returning, 20-something guys, even though they're banged up. They have so much experience. So this is definitely not going to be a team that, that's not just going to lay over or anything like that. And so they're still a strong, talented team. But, I do think that win this game, that's a great step in the right direction. And then we can start talking about game 3 after that.
Chad, thank you. Enjoy the day. Beautiful, beautiful day. You can see the bright skies, blue skies behind him. Homecoming day for Baylor. And also just a few clouds, but it ought to be beautiful. It'll get warmer as the day goes on. Baylor, 2:30, the kickoff against Oklahoma State. Back with more. Later on, we'll have Garrett Ross and his keys to the game. This is 365 Sports, KWTX, and Game Day Live.
Game Day Live, sponsored locally by Central Texas Plumbing Solutions and Bird Colgin Ford.
Lessons in Adulting, brought to you by SPJST. Hello, happy family. Congratulations on your adulting progress. You're killing it. Are you ready for the next step in your adulting journey? Great. Let's talk retirement planning. Don't be scared. SPJST is here to help with traditional and Roth IRAs to help you grow your wealth, and annuities that can guarantee growth and provide income that will last your entire life. Now that's some solid adulting. SPJST, helping people adult since 1897.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. When it's that time for your next car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgin Ford is the right call. Check out the F-150, America's #1 truck, 47 years in a row. Now with 3.9 for 60, plus additional savings. Make the right call with your next vehicle at Bird Colgin Ford. Experience better at BK Ford.
It's the home makeover sale at Furniture Row, where the more you buy, the more you save. Save $100 on every $1,000 you spend. Plus, find unbeatable deals, like the Cascade sofa, only $4.99. Save big on the Gunsmoke panel bed, only $4.99. Get the 5-piece Central Park dining set for only $6.49. And save $100 on the Buena Vista, any size, any model. Or get more bang for your buck with 60 months, no interest. But don't miss out. The home makeover sale at Furniture Row ends Thursday the 24th.
In Lubbock, how much that win. I mean, just imagine. As a fan, if you were happy, if you're a Baylor fan or alum or someone who follows the team, winning that game was probably kind of a fun deal on Saturday evening for you. Imagine if you were the player that had been stuck in the doldrums of what's happened the last 2 years. And so you could kind of feel a little bit of a pick-me-up from that. You should. Can they follow it up with a win? Can they get on a run? the rest of the schedule is somewhat manageable if they continue and can bottle up even part or most of what we saw in Lubbock against Texas Tech. And we hear from a couple of players, starting with Carl Williams IV.
How do you kind of build on the performance that y'all had in that Tech game, and what's been the focus early on in practice this week?
The focus been starting fast and finishing strong. In practice, starting fast with our tempo period, then the end of practice with competition, then with our last team period, finishing fast. I feel like that's the makings to be a good defense, to be a great defense, and we need to keep building and stacking days to do that.
Coach Aranda mentioned during the bye week that y'all really simplified some things, and y'all had the best tackling game of the season against Tech. What kind of went into that in practice, and how can y'all carry that forward?
Just like the intentionality. Like a few games this year, we was bad at tackling, and just seeing that and knowing that we're better than that, and the standard here is way better than what we showed. We came into the game saying we're going to be a sound tackling team and make plays on defense. So it's good to see.
How do you manage kind of all the good things that came out of the Tech game with not kind of letting it go to your head, if that makes sense? How do you manage that, everything?
Celebrate the win, but then Monday getting back straight to the drawing board. That was last week. Now we got a new opponent. So we just trying to focus on going 1-0, and hopefully by the end of the year that does us justice. So
for you to be back close to 100%, how does that feel for you personally?
It feels great. It feels great to be close back to 100%. Just battling through. It was tough, but glad to see that I'm on the tail end of injury, so I'm happy.
Being able to get the win like you did on Saturday, just kind of what's that do for y'all's confidence when y'all had been so close but kind of let some slip away? Just finally getting that, what's that do for you guys moving forward?
It's for sure a confidence booster. I mean, getting that type of win in their home stadium for their homecoming, it was a great win. But it just showed us that, like, we're a pretty good team. We're a great team, and all we need to do is be intentional throughout the week, stack days, and when we do that, hopefully the results is a W on Saturday.
What have you seen from Oklahoma State? What challenges do they present to you?
Well, they have Ollie Gordon. They got a couple of wide receivers that can run routes, but long as we play a sound defense, a lineman assigned defense, we should be good.
Caden's kind of dealt with some injuries as well. When he got that pick to kind of seal the game late, how cool was that to see?
It was cool to see. Caden, he a dog, man. He done been through so much, and just to see him have that breakthrough like that, man, it was a joy to see. So it was pretty good.
You and he have you came in together and have kind of burst onto the scene together. What is your relationship like, and what does Caden mean to the defensive backs overall?
I love Caden. Caden, the guy that's gonna compete, show energy all the time. Everybody feeds off of it. And just having him in that DB room, having him in the corners room, in that defense, it's just a blessing. You see him flying around. You see that he cares. You see that he's very intentional with what he do. So it's great.
How's the offensive line? Like, obviously, the last couple games have been pretty good. How has that group gotten better over the season?
Yeah, certainly in pass protection and run blocking, we've kind of elevated both of them. This past game really elevated our run game, which is what we'd been looking for to open up our pass game more. And so going into this week, we're trying to wash it all away, not get too high, not get too low, and kind of carry what we did into this next game.
I think a consistent run game raises the ceiling of this offense. And what did you think about Bryson Washington's performance over the weekend?
I think a good run game elevates this offense tenfold. Being able to run the ball is amazing, and it really opens up that pass game because they're going to have to load the box in, and then we're going to be able to do fake runs like RPOs, PROs, and stuff like that, be able to get the ball more people, more places. And then B-Wash, that kid ran like his hair was on fire. It was amazing to watch. It was great to see. Love the way that kid runs the ball.
Coach Aranda mentioned that y'all kind of added some wide zone plays back over the bye. How much did that help y'all last weekend?
Yeah, I think our wide zone plays really hit well. A lot of those were explosive. We didn't have kind of an issue because a lot of us were still wide zone guys from Eric Mateos and the Jeff Grimes era. So we kind of knew some techniques that we could transition over, but those plays hit. Everyone thought we were going to run it up the gut, and we put it out to the side and it hit.
Offensively, probably most complete performance on Saturday. Just what does it take to carry that over week to week to week?
I think not focusing on it, like not getting too high on it, kind of wiping it clean and saying we've got a different opponent, they're doing different things, and we have to play our best ball again this week to win.
To build off that, y'all have come close so many times this year. Now you have a win you can point toward. It's tangible. How much positive momentum does that carry over into this week?
I think it brings a lot of positive momentum. The guys have really seen what the full offense can do. You know, we put up something like 550 total yards. That's something that we hadn't seen in a really long time here, and so we're really excited to see if we can do that again, and that's what we're going to try and do.
I guess kind of what do you see from Oklahoma State, and you kind of mentioned it, but what they bring versus what you've seen in the past?
I think what they bring, biggest thing of all, is that their two interior guys are heavier than we've seen all season. I think that, not that it's going to challenge us, but that it's going to be a different playing style. You know, I think one of their guys is 345, the other one's 330. That's a little different than we've seen. We've seen quicker guys, shorter guys, and so we're going to have a little bit of an interesting time seeing how that plays out.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Make Camp Fimfo the destination for your next visit to Waco. Whether you're catching a football game, exploring the silos, or just looking to get away, Camp Fimfo Waco is conveniently located 6 miles from downtown and Baylor University. Voted a #1 best vacation rental in Waco for the last 2 years, this camping resort features cabins and RV sites and is brimming with premium amenities like on-site dining, sports courts, a swimming pool, and more. Start making unforgettable memories and book your stay at Camp Fimfo Waco.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott will invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533. Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Welcome back into Game Day Live. I'm Garrett Ross with today's Keys to the Game presented by Richard Carr Motors. Last week, Baylor went out to Lubbock and they spoiled Texas Tech homecoming as their offense put on an explosion led by Sawyer Robertson and also Bryson Washington. It was really remarkable and fun to see what Baylor was able to do once they got everything clicking on offense. They really dominated Texas Tech in all 3 phases of the game. And if you remember, one of our keys last week was to bottle up Taj Brooks. The defense did exactly that, and Baylor was able to play spoiler out there against the Red Raiders. Now this week, Baylor is hosting their homecoming, and the Pokes are coming to town from Stillwater. And Oklahoma State really has been one of the more disappointing teams in the Big 12 this season. If you go back and look at the rankings, a lot of the people had them in the middle towards the top of the pack. And right now, they just haven't been able to put it together. They're one of the worst teams. They're at the very bottom of the Big 12 standings. And last week, they went out to Provo. They gave BYU all they could handle, but a lot of that was because Garrett Rangel replaced Alan Bowman at quarterback. And unfortunately for the Pokes, Rangel broke his collarbone on a run, and their offense just kind of fell apart from there. So that's going to lead to our first key for Baylor this week is going to be make Alan Bowman beat you with his arm. When you look at Alan Bowman, like he's really kind of hit or miss. He's very inconsistent. This is a guy who's playing his 7th year of college football, and honestly, if you're playing college football this late into your career, you're not going to have a chance of making it to the NFL, or else you would already be there. Bowman has struggled with decision-making, which at this point in the time, you would think he would have that figured out. It's just not there for him. He's missing his receivers. He's forcing a lot of throws, and he's got 9 interceptions on the season with just 13 touchdowns. 7 of those interceptions have come in the past 4 games for him, which is not ideal. And if Baylor's secondary can get a healthy Caden Jenkins back, and you can have Carl Williams in them play a role like they did last week in Lubbock, and they can force some turnovers, Bowman's going to throw them there. So I think the key for Baylor, or the first key, is definitely make Alan Bowman beat you with your arm. Now, the second key is going to be start fast and run the football early on, because you saw that last week. Baylor got off to a fast start, large a part to their rushing attack. Having Bryson Washington back has been very beneficial for Baylor. He is the difference maker in that running back room. Unfortunately, he got banged up against Iowa State. He had to miss a couple of games, and while he only got 10 carries last week, they were very vital carries. He eclipsed the century mark. He got into the end zone. He is definitely the difference maker for Baylor, and he's the best running back they have. Now, when you can spell him with a guy like Dawson Pendergrass who can pound it, Richard Reese can be elusive, that gives time to open things up for Sawyer Robertson. And when he has a rushing attack that can open things up for him, you see Sawyer Robertson can make big plays with his arm. And I think Baylor can do that again this week against Oklahoma State, if they can get off to a rushing attack, a fast rushing attack, and make that thing roll. Our final key to this game, it's going to be the more physical program. If you look and you think about Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, it's blue collar. It is, we're going to punch you in the face. We're going to be very physical, and that's what they hang their hat on. And they've had a lot of success doing that over the past few years. I think Baylor has really got to be the more physical team in this matchup. You saw the Bears flying around last week, whether it was Steve Linton or Matt Jones. It didn't matter. Like the defensive front for Baylor made the difference in that game, and they're going to have to carry that over into this week. If you look at Ollie Gordon, while he's been successful, and he's what Oklahoma State really relies on to carry them, he's been banged up this season, and there's been inconsistency with his play. He's missed a lot of reps. You don't know how often he's going to get into the game, but they're going to have to rely on Ollie Gordon if they want to come in here and upset Baylor. And I think that the Bears defense can do a good job of being the more physical team, put some good hard shots on Ollie Gordon, and make him think about what he's doing. If Baylor could be the more physical team in this game, I really think they have a good chance of coming out victorious. Now, Baylor owes it to their fans, in my opinion, to come out and show that you can win at McLean Stadium. You have not won a game at McLean Stadium since October of 2022 against Kansas. That's been abysmal. You have a great crowd that's going to show up. It is homecoming, and you got to carry that momentum over from last week, because if you lay an egg today, it's all for nothing. And you're going to have to just figure out where you're going from there. I think Baylor can win this game. I picked the Bears to win 31-24, but it should be a back-and-forth affair, and it should be a fun game to watch. Enjoy homecoming. We'll be back with more Game Day Live right after this.
Bring your favorite styles home for the holidays from Du Bois Furniture. We make it easy and affordable. Entertain in style this season with special holiday savings, plus up to 25% off all accessories and up to 70% off clearance at Du Bois Furniture.
At Jeff Hunter Toyota, we don't just sell cars, we build relationships. For more than 30 years, we've proudly served the Waco community, sharing Toyota's commitment to quality and embodying Waco values every step of the way. From our friendly sales team to our expert service technicians, our priority is always you, our valued customer. Shop Jeff Hunter Toyota or go to jeffhuntertoyota.com. Jeff Hunter Toyota, Toyota quality, Waco values.
If you need a system repair or replacement, call the good folks at Clark Heating and Air Conditioning. They're family owned and operated since 1999 and offer best of the best installation, maintenance, and customer service. Being Waco's Tempstar Elite dealer, they have the best warranties and financing options. The Clark team is knowledgeable, well-trained, and ready to serve you. Call Clark Heating and Air Conditioning today and see why they're Waco's Tempstar Elite dealer.
Sleep well and safe during Du Bois Furniture's Home for the Holidays mattress sale. Sleep better on a new Sealy, Stearns & Foster, or Tempur-Pedic mattress. Plus, get up to a $300 in-store certificate and special financing now at Du Bois Furniture.
Watch the Greg May Honda Extra Point High School Football Show every Friday night at 10.
Week, we have various college football columnists, analysts, broadcasters to discuss many of the games in the Big 12, who Baylor is playing, of course, today, Oklahoma State, but also other teams around the country. One of them is ESPN's Eli Letterman, who at one point covered Oklahoma State. It was one of the topics we brought up with him on Thursday's show about what he's seen with Oklahoma State with a free fall of losing 4 consecutive games. And Mike Gundy's teams just don't do that. Keep doing the work you're doing, man. We appreciate it. You were in Oklahoma and covered those schools, and including Oklahoma State. What do you see? They're playing Baylor this week. They played well last week, but they couldn't finish. The quarterback situation's a mess. Rangel's hurt. Bowman's back. We know the story, but how much do you think this is grinding on Mike Gundy and also Cowboys fans?
Oh, I think it's supremely disappointing. And this really is, right? Like, this is the Oklahoma State we've come to know and love, I think, in that, you've got the year, like last year, let's say, where you don't have high expectations for them and they surprise everyone. And then they come back this year with much of the same team. They're significantly depleted on defense, and that's really hamstrung them. But they come back with this team with high hopes, and we all probably would have thought at this point in the year they might be one of those 2 or 3 teams in the Big 12 competing for playoff spots. And yet here they are stumbling into Baylor. And I think week to week, even trying to predict what they're going to look like is really challenging. Maybe the more positive news, it's not positive, of course, the injuries they've got at quarterback. But the fact is, I think they've really only got one option this week, and it's going to be Alan Bowman, given the injuries behind him. So for them, I think they'd hope they go in and look a bit better, more consistent, as they did at points against BYU. But they are really a trick-or-treat team, which, I guess orange and black makes sense for this time of year.
Well, yeah, no, it does. What do you think this is doing to Gundy?
I think he's frustrated. I mean, which is an understatement, of course, but I think they were ready to move on with Garrett Rangel and whatever that was going to look like for the rest of this year. I mean, you could say, I guess at this point, whether it's a lost season or, at least a drop down from the initial aspirations they would have had, but perhaps you could develop Garrett Rangel. To lose him to a broken collarbone, have to go back to Alan Bowman, who, I think Mike Gundy had been frustrated with the performances of Alan Bowman. And then now, you're burning these last 6-7 games on a guy that, is not going to be back next year. So there's not a developmental angle there. So I think there's frustration specifically at the quarterback position. And then on the whole, this is a year that hasn't gone to plan, and they don't have an especially strong recruiting class coming in next year. We know, Oklahoma State's trying to get more competitive in the NIL space and working in the portal. But I think, what's got to be frustrating is that on top of the performance this year, looking toward next year, there's not a lot to be excited about just right now.
Where do Cowboys or Oklahoma State fans? They're not greedy, but they expect, because Gundy's won all the time. Where do you think they are? He's not going anywhere, and they're not forcing him out. Where do you think they are right now?
I think, right or wrong, and I really don't know the right answer to this, is they're focused on Casey Dunn, offensive coordinator, right? I mean, the frustrations with him have, ranged back to, you mentioned I covered Oklahoma State, the 2021 season when they went to the Big 12 title game and lost to Baylor and just narrowly missed out on the playoff. Folks were upset then about the offense, and the offense was good back then. It isn't right now, and I think that's where a lot of the fans have their attention. Same for Brian Nardo, the defensive coordinator. I think to his credit, this has been a defense that's just been decimated by injury and all that. But I think that's where people's eyes are fixed. And I do think Mike Gundy has the benefit of the doubt in Stillwater, maybe for life. He's got a contract for life. But I think that's where a lot of the fan base's focus is right now.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, Eli, thank you. Appreciate your time. Great stuff. Eli Letterman covered Oklahoma State for a while, now works for ESPN.
Game Day Live, sponsored locally by Central Texas Plumbing Solutions and Bird Colgin Ford. KWTX presents the Greg May Honda Extra Point High School Football Show on News 10. Catch highlights from teams all across Central Texas every Friday night at 10. The Greg May Honda Extra Point High School Football Show on KWTX News 10 is sponsored by Greg May Honda and in part by Slovachex, the Good Feet Store, and the Zimmerman Law Firm.
Need auto parts? Budget Wrench-A-Part has a huge inventory with new arrivals daily. Search parts easily on our website or give us a call. Then grab your tools and visit our organized yard where you can easily locate, pull your own parts, and save big. Got a junk car taking up space? We pay top dollar and the tow is free. Pick and pull your parts or sell your junker with Budget Wrench-A-Part, your auto part headquarters located on 190 in Belton.
What have we got?
The Andersons. All night tossing and turning, bad backs, sleep score at an all-time low.
Round up the team.
At Denver Mattress, going undercover is literally how we solve problems.
And when we find sleepers waking up with aches and pains, we turn to the Tempur-Pedic Adapt, designed for ultimate pressure relief that uniquely adapts to your body's pressure points. The Tempur Adapt features innovative technology, so you get deep, undisturbed rest all night long.
Denver Mattress, the easiest way to get the right Tempur-Pedic.
In this segment, we still will hear from Dave Aranda around the corner and Baylor radio color analyst and former quarterback J.J. Joe. Baylor began homecoming in 1909. They are 50, 44, and 4 all-time on homecoming day. They have won 4 of their last 5, 11 of the last 13 games on homecoming. Also, in the rivalry and series against Oklahoma State, and of course the maybe biggest game ever, although there have been a few, happened in 2021 at the end of the year in the Big 12 championship game, Baylor winning on that unbelievable play by McVay to stop a touchdown right at the goal line to win the Big 12 title, go on to also beat Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. Oklahoma State leads the all-time series 23-19. Baylor is 9-8 here in Waco. Here, okay, Craig, here are the games in the Big 12 to kind of go over for the rest of the day, and there are plenty. It's a loaded-up schedule. There are 2 teams you'll see at the bottom who are off: Iowa State, Arizona State. Iowa State, number 10 in the country, they're having the weekend off. You have BYU, number 11 in the country. No matter their schedule, who they've beaten, for some reason the computers don't seem to like them, and they're just bouncing and trying to get inside what is the top 10. UCF in what could be a dicey game on the road against Gus Malzahn and a team that is like, what's happened to us?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big one. Every game moving forward now, involving BYU especially, is key for the playoff and for just a bigger Big 12 picture. I mean, they're right there at the top along with Iowa State. K-State's knocking on that door as well, but BYU's tops in the Big 12 and unbeaten. And so here we sit with a month and change left to go, and they're not that far from, forcing their way into that conversation. But for right now, as there's a little bit of time remaining and a little bit of an uncertain picture, a lot of the pundits, a lot of the shills, a lot of the however you want to refer to them are definitely not giving BYU the same level of respect that they're giving a lot of other teams who have played lesser schedules, who even have worse records. I think it's a disrespect to the Big 12, for one. I think it's a lack of interest on the parts of a lot of those pundits to really dig deeper into the Big 12 or into BYU. And I think that, there's just some doubt that they stack up compared to the third or fourth team maybe in some other leagues, which goes back to kind of the perception issues. But if they keep winning, there's nobody that's going to be able to just say anything other than like, hey, they've earned it. And so far they've earned their spot at the top of the standings, but they go into this game as slight underdogs. So that's interesting, especially given that UCF's had a hard time compiling wins as of late. So we'll see if Vegas is right on this. If so, it'd be a big shakeup, not only in the standings of the Big 12, but also nationally.
And there's that second game is Baylor hosting Oklahoma State. More on that in a moment. Texas Tech, after getting embarrassed at home by Baylor, on the road now against TCU, who's been also hot and cold like a lot of teams inside the Big 12.
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of this game. Texas Tech's defense is clearly suspect. If Josh Hoover's able to throw the ball around the yard the way he's capable of doing, then Tech could be in some trouble. But if he's throwing it around to the other team like he's also been known to do, then maybe it's a big day in Fort Worth for Tech. But TCU, a team that has had a very wonky type of year, but has the opportunity to go a couple games above 500 here at home, whereas Tech really needs this win after the lashing they took against Baylor last week. So, this is an interesting game, and both teams kind of at an interesting point in the season where it's a matter of what direction you go. And I think for Texas Tech especially, they need this win to try and get back to how they were feeling prior to that Baylor game, but will not be easy.
Here's two teams that had high hopes. Arizona joining the conference after a really impressive year last year, lost their coach, get a new one in Coach Brennan. They are in need of a win. We say that a lot. Everybody is now at this time of the year as they push to try to become bowl eligible or to get just in the win column. Arizona in Tucson, FS1 hosting West Virginia.
Arizona's been really disappointing, but as far as the most vocal disappointment around the league right now, it's clearly out in Morgantown. I mean, there's others here in Baylor country. There's been some people upset with Dave Aranda. We've seen, backlash on Joey McGuire this week. Sonny Dykes had his couple weeks there with TCU fans. But, I mean, the real hot seat in the Big 12 is in Morgantown, West Virginia. So Neil Brown and crew take that show on the road, desperately needing to win, but Arizona too. I mean, they've struggled 1-3 in the league. So West Virginia 5-point underdogs as it stands right now. That's kind of surprising to see. But then again, with the mood surrounding that program, you just kind of wonder how it's all being held together and if the dam's not about to break. Garrett Green's not played well. But then again, Tetero, McMillan, and Noah Fafita have been feast or famine, and Fafita in particular has been very hit or miss. So a couple teams who have just been a little bit wonky, and I don't really know what to expect from either one of these, but Arizona is a slight favorite heading into this one.
All right. Also down in Houston, Willie Fritz and the Cougars had that nice win against TCU and then fell flat at Kansas. They host a team in Utah that has been a mess because of the delays and what's going to happen at quarterback. Well, now they know Isaac Wilson moving forward because Cam Rising is out officially, and Utah, which thought they were going to run the Big 12, or their fans did, playing Willie Fritz and the Cougars.
Utah is one of the more disappointing stories, obviously. I mean, health is something that you can't predict in any of your models or whatever, and so that's been a curveball that nobody foresaw, although if you were going to predict an injury, Cam Rising would be a pretty safe bet. And so, that unfolded the way that it did, and we saw last week when it was really the Isaac Wilson show how rough of a look that can be for this team. That defense is going to have to win them some games moving down the stretch. But I said earlier in the week, and I maintain that if you were to take the entire Big 12, pick two teams and say, here's the ugliest game possible, the least watchable game, it would be this one because both are just kind of plodding along. Houston has some excuses. Utah has some excuses with Rising, but it makes for an ugly game on paper, certainly. And Utah, I think you still roll with them here, but they're hurting, and Houston's giving some teams a run for their money, but the last time we saw them, they did not look good.
Kansas and Kansas State, longtime rivalry. Kansas State has absolutely dominated this for a couple of decades or more. Kansas got a win last week. They need to win out to get to a bowl. Kansas State trying to keep their Big 12 championship hopes alive at 7 o'clock tonight in Manhattan.
It was good for KU to get a win. They've played a tough schedule, and they've had some tough finishes and might be a little bit better than their record indicates, but I don't know by really all that much. Still, Jalen Daniels has shown some flashes And this is a rivalry game, so you don't worry really too much about the records. But I think K-State's really in a nice groove right now. They're double-digit favorites. They're at home. I think they can smell the blood in the water, and I think you lean K-State here just based on everything, eye test, numbers, all of that. But, again, it's a rivalry game, so maybe KU can string some things together and make it interesting. But it will take probably their best effort of the entire year to try to make this one anything other than a K-State win.
And then the game tonight, Deion Sanders and Colorado are on the verge of becoming bowl eligible. They host Cincinnati, another team that has had a really nice year. There were thoughts that maybe Colorado would get to 4 wins, 5 wins, but probably not a bowl team. They're on the verge of that. Cincinnati as well with Scott Satterfield and the Bearcats and Buffaloes tonight, late-night game in Boulder, Colorado.
I think it's a really interesting matchup in some ways. I think the Texas high school quarterback competition, shootout between Brennan Sorsby and Shedeur Sanders ought to be interesting just because both of those guys have had really good years. But I know there's some people that don't really believe in Cincinnati, and those that didn't really believe in Colorado, they've been proven wrong. So I think as far as kind of what we've seen, I'm a little bit more confident in the Buffaloes, and being the late kickoff, being in Boulder, that adds a little bit extra to it as well. But I think it'll be fascinating to see if there's something to that 2 time zone theory as well, with Cincinnati having to hop over a couple of time zones. There's a thought in college football with the new conferences and all the extra travel for everybody that's been maybe a trend. I don't think there's enough information to prove that yet, but the thought that 2 time zone jumps is more difficult. So that's Cincinnati tonight, and the late kick and all that. I think that all that plays into Colorado having the edge here. But Cincinnati, they could really prove something if they can go out there and put on a show.
And again, Iowa State and Arizona State, all those 2 teams have the off week. Iowa State right now ranked inside the top 10. When we come back, we'll look at the top 25. We'll still have time to hear from J.J. Joe, Dave Aranda. Our final thoughts. Garrett Ross runs Game Day Live for us on KWTX and 365 Sports. And now the top 25, including a critical college football playoff game, or at least trying to get to that, between Boise State and UNLV late last night. This is Game Day Live.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Score big savings at the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr Buick. A first-year All-American and a 2024 Car and Driver Magazine Editor's Choice. The all-new Buick Envista starts at only $23,990. Or make the winning drive in a 2024 Buick Encore GX SUV and save $4,000 for non-GM car owners. Qualified buyers get 0.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. Score your deal at the Kickoff to Savings event going on now at Richard Carr Buick.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Make Camp Info the destination for your next visit to Waco. Whether you're catching a football game, exploring the silos, or just looking to get away, Camp Info Waco is conveniently located 6 miles from downtown and Baylor University. Voted the #1 best vacation rental in Waco for the last 2 years, this camping resort features cabins and RV sites and is brimming with premium amenities like on-site dining, sports courts, a swimming pool, and more. Start making unforgettable memories and book your stay at Camp Info Waco.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
One game on Thursday night in a remarkable game. Pittsburgh beat Syracuse 41-13, and Syracuse quarterback McCord threw 5 interceptions, 3 of them run back for touchdowns. It was a very bad performance. Former Baylor assistant Fran Brown, the head coach now at Syracuse. And then last night, 2 teams that are hoping to get a chance, now one of those 2, and they still have work to do. Boise State 29-24. They scored early in the fourth quarter on a 4th down and goal from the 1. Heisman candidate Aston Gente ended up with 128 yards, 33 carries, the 1 touchdown that was the game winner. And Boise State keeps their college football playoff hopes alive. And what a game for them last night for the Broncos to beat the Rebels.
Yeah, it was a nice win for Boise State. Obviously a playoff elimination game in some ways for the group of 5. And Genty not having his typical 200-type yard, 3 touchdown, whatever, in that ballpark sort of performance, but still had over 100 yards, still had a key touchdown there late in the game that kind of helped seal things in some ways for Boise State. And it was just a short, 4th and 1 run, but still it was a huge touchdown, especially on 4th down. And he was able to get his despite them focusing basically 99.99% of attention on him. And I think that's a testament that he was still able to carve out some nice numbers and have a pretty big impact on the game. So some may look at the numbers alone and say that he gets knocked for that or it's not impressive enough. But I think if you look at it in the context of that game, which I don't know how many people actually do that, then you'd see that it was still a pretty impressive performance and should not knock his Heisman standing whatsoever, but I don't know that that'll be the case.
No, I don't.
Win.
I'm sorry. I have a Heisman vote, and at one point late, I guess it was in the late 3rd quarter, he had 85 yards, and I was wondering, I'm not going to let one game ruin anybody's opportunity, but he did need to do more, and he did. 100, as I mentioned, 128 yards, 33 carries in a tough game and a big win. He scored the game-winning points. Top 25 today. Here are the bangers. These are teams both ranked in the top 25. We have about, Garrett, 3 minutes here to get through these 5. There are other games. These are the ones, ranked team against ranked team, and one of the great stories is that Army and Navy are both ranked. Army has the week off. Navy, not the favorite, unbeaten, hosting Notre Dame in a long-time rivalry at 11 o'clock on ABC.
Yeah, that's great that the service academies are getting some attention, and that'll be a lot of eyes, I'm sure, with Notre Dame rolling into town and quite the crowd as well. So some pretty rarefied air going on and in the air potentially if the service academies keep winning. And, I mean, all bets are off if they beat Notre Dame as far as the just kind of euphoria that would bring and fun that would bring across college football. But not banking on it. The opportunity's there, though, and it's a good spotlight for them.
And there's a chance that they could play. Of course, they have the great Army-Navy game. If they were both 2-8 or 9, it would be unbelievable tradition, but they have a chance to play a couple of different times. But right now, Navy has their hands full with Notre Dame. Illinois, Brett Bielema, Illinois, 20th against number 1 Oregon, who, of course, flexed their muscles with that win against Ohio State, that game at 2:30 on CBS.
Oregon number 1, we'll see how they defend that ranking. I think the last time they had a number 1 ranking, it didn't last but maybe a week, as I saw a couple days ago. So this is new air for them as well, and Illinois has been a fun story, so that's a nice one in the Big Ten.
Also, you have Missouri. They got spanked, still ranked in the top 25, and you kind of wonder why. They play at Alabama. They're still really high, ranked pretty well, not what they're used to. If Alabama loses and they're ranked in the top 25 or either one of these teams next week, I'll be angry, and I'll talk about it on 365 Sports, that game at 2:30 on ABC.
Yeah, I think this is a semi-interesting game. Nice rankings attached to it make it look a little bit better. I'm somewhat interested in this one, not really compared to most of these other games listed, though. But, yeah, Alabama at number 15 is huge for them. If they were to suffer a third defeat, I mean, they are done in terms of any playoff hopes, and those are already teetering anyways. But even the big picture SEC talk, they'd be 2-3. So Bama at home really, really needs this win. And then for Missouri, yeah, they're hanging on in the top 25. They've only got 1 loss, so that's understandable, but their schedule stinks. They finally played some real competition in comparison to what they had played previously a couple weeks ago against A&M, and A&M gave them that first ding. Here's their second biggest test, and we'll see if they're able to better show themselves.
Texas at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's been a feel-good story. Texas, after falling behind against Georgia, they lose, and then we'll talk LSU and A&M, that game in College Station. Go over both of them, Craig. And these two, of course, could be all of those teams in the SEC try to get to where they need to be to play for the championship.
Yeah, a lot of people have pumped up Texas Vanderbilt. I'm not that assured that it's going to be some great affair just because Vanderbilt's, beat Alabama, that they're suddenly like world beaters or anything. But, yeah, it's interesting to see them have a top 25 ranking next to their name, although that's on the verge of going away today, and I think that it will. I think Texas rebounds from the Georgia loss and goes to Nashville and gets a win. And then I think Texas A&M and LSU's a really interesting game just because these two teams have had some classics, and it's been a fun little rivalry these past few years. A&M looks really good. LSU's been, kind of topsy-turvy at times, but I think they've got their guy at quarterback, and he's playing really well, and so that ought to be a really competitive game. But A&M and Texas, the more they keep winning, you start to look at next month and what that could turn into. Not trying to get too ahead of yourselves because both could lose today, but I feel pretty confident in Texas, and I feel great about A&M's chances against LSU as well, although I expect that to be a much more competitive game.
Garrett's going to that game to cover it. His Tigers, he'll cover LSU tonight at Kyle Field against Texas A&M. When we come back, J.J. Joe on the win, Sawyer Robertson, Oklahoma State, Baylor trying to turn things around. This is Game Day Live.
Central Texas Plumbing Solution is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. So when you need some help before the big game, call Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
What sets Hillcrest Dental Care apart is our vision of how we want to care for our patients to improve their health and their quality of life, whether it's the teeth, the gums, the bite, or the smile.
Because I didn't feel anything at all. When I woke up there, I had everything done. I go to the restaurant to eat, and the waitress said this, "You got new teeth." So they noticed them too. If you want something done that is good and permanent, this is the place to go.
Need auto parts? Budget Rent-A-Part has a huge inventory with new arrivals daily. Search parts easily on our website or give us a call. Then grab your tools and visit our organized yard where you can easily locate, pull your own parts, and save big. Got a junk car taking up space? We pay top dollar and the tow is free. Pick and pull your parts or sell your junker with Budget Rent-A-Part, your auto part headquarters located on 190 in Belton.
Central Texas Plumbing Solution is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. So when you need some help before the big game, call Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
Watch the Greg May Honda Extra Point High School Football Show every Friday night at 10.
J.J. Joe, Baylor Radio color analyst, former Baylor quarterback, joins us, who was in Lubbock as Sawyer Robertson went off. But every phase of the game did for Baylor. 5 touchdowns. He has been named the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week. Bryson Washington, the newcomer, had a big game. JJ, you've seen glimpses, but that seemed like it was all at one time. It finally came together. Was it Tech's defense is that bad, or was everything just kind of finally meshed together for Baylor?
Smoak, thanks for having me on. I think everything fell together. It felt like a combination of things, but we've seen glimpses of this team playing well. Iowa State early. Remember, they played well early. Had the bad thing happen with the block punt, and then things seemed to turn for the worse. Then Iowa State figured us out in the second half. But the other day, I just thought that we felt, and rightfully so, that we could block them up front. I think I saw it early in our offensive linemen. They felt like they could block them. We had success running the ball early. Coach Spavital was very committed to it. And once you can run the ball and impose your will, Smoke, is hard to explain to people that, like, when they can't stop you in one phase, especially the run game, everything else grows off of that. So it came together, man. It was great to see.
Defensively, they made the plays when they had to. Obviously, giving up 35 is not a banner day, but they were able to not have that moment, though, JJ, that you talked about, the block punt or something where the momentum got sucked out of them. Do you think that maybe now they can see that, like, oh, we don't have to put all our eggs in one basket of every moment of this game could break us?
Yeah, I thought, the defense has shown in spurts that they could play at a certain level, and it was really offensively where we were a little inconsistent. But I'll say this. I mean, I was very apprehensive going to the game. I was asked before the game, how did you feel? And whenever I'm in Lubbock anyway, I say this, but I said I don't feel good about this one. Just because they showed that they could run the ball with their runner, and we hadn't shown that. And then I thought both teams in the passing game were about the same. So I'll tell you, I was really impressed. And really defensively, I thought we really kind of held what's their tailback's name again?
Taj Brooks.
Yeah, Brooks, and really in check. He had 60 yards at halftime, ended up with 125, but he had really the one big one. And then I felt like, they scored 2 touchdowns in the last 10 minutes of the game when really we kind of had a nice little gap on them. So I'm not saying that's acceptable, as Coach Aranda, I think, was a little upset that they scored anything. But I thought defensively we showed ourselves well on Saturday.
How much did it help having healthy Caden Jenkins, who just seems to grab an interception, every, couple of games or so, and a healthy Carl Williams the fourth? And, I mean, that's something that, the losing stacks up and you just don't want to hear excuses, JJ, yeah. But there have been things that have occurred where you're like, all right, like they don't have this, they don't have that, and they finally had a lot of that on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Craig, I mean, I think it was a good thing that what happened to Caden Jenkins, and I don't mean having to miss games with whatever the injury was. I think in the Colorado game, he had a couple errors. He kind of lost balance, was a little bit overly physical, maybe didn't play those plays the right way in the Colorado game. And sometimes you find out what the measure of a young man is when you kind of go through something for the first time in his career where probably he was looked at as, hey, man, can you really play or not? Which we know he can. But I like to see that, okay, after he came back from whatever the injury was, he played good football on Saturday, and then he made, the kind of play we've used to seeing Caden Jenkins make. So I'm going to tell you, man, to have a guy who ultimately, I do agree with Coach Aranda, has NFL caliber talent, you need those guys to play at a high level. And I think I said that a few weeks ago that, the Matt Joneses, the Caden Jenkins, the Garmin Randolphs, all those guys have to play at a high level for this team to at least perform to the point that we expect it to.
JJ, obviously the offensive line had a lot to do with helping out Sawyer Robertson, giving him plenty of time, and then also giving him a running game to take some of the heat off of him. But what's impressed you most about him, and how cool is that to also see DeQuan Finn get a little bit of shine there late in that game and really put that thing away when Tech had, kind of changed the ending there a little bit with a couple of scores?
Yeah, I was glad to see DeQuan get some action. Things, I mean, he expected things to work out a certain way, and they didn't. I think I talked about this last time I was with you guys a few weeks ago. And it's good to see him get some action because, I mean, you never know in this game, man. We have 5 to play, and you just got to have another guy back there you feel comfortable that can, he's not playing at the level that Sawyer was in the throw game, but he's a veteran quarterback with talent. So it's good to see him get action, get a little run in there, get a score, and that was sweet to see. And then of course Sawyer has continued to grow. I mean, I said at the beginning I wanted to see him early in the season because when the first game when we saw him and he got a little time, I felt like I think this guy's light is on. I just think it came on, and this is just a continuation. I just think Sawyer now is at that point where he's got enough action. Not that he knows everything, but he's seen for the majority most of what people are going to do to him, and he's performing well. And if the guys come with it, if you give him a run game, like finally he's got a run game where he's not the run game, I tell you, man, it's a sight to behold.
All right, so the run game, speaking of which, Bryson Washington's different.
Yes.
I remember Keenan Hall even saying that to me, that with all due respect, he wasn't saying it wasn't Reese or Dominic Richardson or even Dawson Pendergrass, but he's different. As a guy that played the game, he doesn't get enough touches, and he finally did. He needs to be more consistent. He's been banged up, but why is he different, JJ?
And he's learning. I think with Bryson, if you think about it, you have the size, you have the speed, but you also got to think what he does to defense when you see that guy coming. He has the ability. Pendergrass has the size, but Pendergrass doesn't have the suddenness.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Dawson in the short yardage game, especially at goal line. I like him. He's kind of suffered because Bryson's come on, so his carries have suffered. But nevertheless, he's different. He has the size, he has speed. He hadn't really shown me as much of the elusiveness, but he has just enough to where I think of the other traits where it makes him highly effective in this offense. So if you think about it, man, I think he had 7 carries at half. He only ended with 10 carries, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I know he went out for a while, and I think he was dealing with some stuff. So in 10 carries, he had over 100 yards because he broke a few of them, and that line played well. I don't want to go without saying, I remember seeing Lingale on that first run he had. Lingale had a fantastic block to seal that thing. And those guys up front, as much as we bash them, against the Tech defensive line that I thought we should control, they did it.
Last thing, Oklahoma State. Man, they were close to getting one of those wins, but they've been kind of in a free fall, been a very disappointing year. Their quarterback play is kind of a mess, and now Rangel's hurt. Games at home, Baylor gets back home. The win might help people get back. It's homecoming.
Yeah.
But sometimes when it's in this moment, not back in the early part of the 2010s, but in a moment like this, you get maybe a chance to bring some people back. How big would it be with TCU the following week to put up a W other than just a win-loss column?
I think it'll be huge. This team needs to get on a run. Smoke. I mean, it's we've had so many close wins, or you want to call them losses, and we just didn't come through. Now I think this team saw, hey, if we perform at a high level, this is what it can look like. We can take a team out. Oklahoma State will be well. I know that Ollie Gordon left the game early, I think, last week, so I'm not sure what his health is. But Oklahoma State played well against BYU in the hostile environment. They're going to be a hard out, but this team needs this W. We need it. So then, if you stack a couple, I think if this team can stack a couple and just taste it a little bit, taste it again, I think the rest of them, they'll figure it out. And I'm saying that right now. I think if they can get this one and taste it and stay healthy as much as we can, I think this team can finish this thing out. And I'm interested to see it. I don't want to get ahead of myself. That's why I'm saying this week is huge, because Oklahoma State is the kind of team that they've lost a few close ones, and they can beat you.
Yep, no question. Thank you for the time, young man. Appreciate it. JJ, Baylor radio color analyst and also former Baylor quarterback with us.
Game Day Live, sponsored locally by Central Texas Plumbing Solutions and Bird Colgin Ford.
When choosing the right orthodontist to do your kids' braces, being confident and comfortable with your choice is essential.
In Fusion Dental, we will greet you in your language.
Our orthodontist will walk you through the process and provide you with options in the language you're most comfortable with. How are you doing today?
From the person that greets you at the door to the doctor who will do your treatment, we all speak Spanish. You can follow me.
Dental care and orthodontics for everyone. Brighter smiles begin here at Fusion Dental.
Did you know BYOT Auto Parts is one of the largest buyers of used cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs in Central Texas? We'll buy your car today, running or not, and you'll get paid top dollar on the spot. Tired of pouring money into your car? We feel your pain. Got a vehicle that's just collecting dust? We'll pick it up for free and you still get paid. Looking for quality used auto parts? Look no further. At BYOT, bring your own tools and pull your own parts. Call or visit us online today.
BYOT Auto Parts. BYOT Auto Parts. Bring your own tools, pull your own parts.
Wake up, people! Rotten sleep means rotten moods, rotten backs, rotten health. Rotten breath goes without saying, but you're in luck. Because during the incredible value sale, the more you buy, the more you save. Save $100 on every $1,000 you spend. Check out the Buena Vista. Any size, any model, and save $100. Or get 60 months no interest and free shipping. Kick that rotten sleep to the curb. Only at Denver Mattress. The easiest way to get the right mattress.
Back with Game Day Live, and Dave Aranda, as he does on Mondays, met with the media during any week that they have a game coming off the win against Texas Tech. Baylor hosting Oklahoma State. There were things we saw. If you watched the game or Saturday, you're at the game, that could you bottle that up? That remains to be seen. A couple of questions for the Baylor head coach as they play Oklahoma State today on homecoming.
The win on Saturday, and then you talked about team meetings today. Do you feel the team is like re-energized and it's kind of like, you know, new fire in this team?
Yeah, I guess that would be one way to say it. I think, you know, I just go back to the belief and confidence that's contagious. And I think when you're making an argument and you've got a cut up here, or you've got some stats to show here, or you've got video evidence of something, and it's kind of particular and specific, that really doesn't do it. You know, that doesn't do it. I think it's very hard. I think there's individuals that are just born and kind of imbued with just a natural confidence. I think those guys are able to kind of get to the other side. The ones that aren't like that, and we do have a few on our team that are not like that, I think that, you know, the particular cut-up fails to meet the standard there. And so I think when they can go out and, you know, wanting and hoping and trying and all this other thing and then accomplish something, you know, the Iowa State O-line protection is one example of it, then I think there's a belief of, man, I'm that guy, I can do this. And so I think the team feels that. I think particularly offensively.
Last week when we were in here, you had talked about Sawyer's leadership and just about how he's a guy who's been patient and waiting to really prove what he's got. He really did that on Saturday. What is it from his leadership that you're looking to carry in from last week into this week?
He's one of those guys that has that confidence, and he's able to articulate it, you know, and I think he doesn't hold anything back. I think we've got some guys that feel something and will kind of keep it behind closed doors, with Sawyer is just right out. And I think so much of it is good when that's the case, that guys can read him and follow him. And I think he puts himself out there, which takes a lot of confidence to do. And, you know, I think that our guys look to him. I mean, the end of practice today, he broke it. You know, our aim is to start fast in this game, and we've had that for a couple games and have struggled to do that, and we're going to need to do it this particular week, just with the start time and with our opponent and everything else. And so we're going to have to play our best early on, and you know, he was able to vocalize that. It's probably better him than me.
Even after some of the losses, you said you were still, you know, seeing the guys working hard in practice and playing well in practice. Just, do you feel like Saturday was a little more indicative of what you had been seeing in practices weeks before?
Yeah, I think it's always difficult. I've been, you know, I recognize I've probably talked about practice too much, you know, here. And so, but there's, you know, you see guys make incredible plays. You see guys rise to the occasion. You know, I just think with all of it, they're, you know, showing up for a meeting and having the right mindset and attacking it is one thing. You know, showing up for a walkthrough, having the right mindset and, you know, being intentional about it's another thing. And then you just go down the line of whether it's a practice or it's a scrimmage or it's a, you know, opening game or it's an away game or it's any of these things. All of it is another level of competition. All of it is different. And all of it brings you to a higher level of kind of do or die. And I think, you know, you don't know until you know. And then you got to face yourself and then you got to get better. And so I think that whole thing's the thing. And I think our guys have gone through that. And probably not like this, like you'd like. Probably a little bit like this. But this next one's a critical one in just that journey, let's say. And so I'm excited to walk with them through it.
It's time to score big savings at the Kickoff to Savings event on GMC trucks at Richard Carr GMC. Take the winning drive with the Texas Truck MVP. GMC Sierra is the best truck on the road. Save $9,000 on 2024 GMC Sierra SLT models in stock with approved trade-in. Plus, qualified buyers get 1.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. See dealer for details. Save big and score your deal at the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr GMC.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI. Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533. Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC.
Is Baylor homecoming hosting Oklahoma State at 2:30 today, and it is a beautiful day. And kickoff is just after 2:30. We will lead you up until that, and then of course we're off in about 10 minutes or so. And I will be back in studio with Emery Winter as soon as the Baylor game with Oklahoma State ends. You can, if you want, switch over to our YouTube channel, 365 Sports, unless that's what you're watching right now. and have a post-game reaction to whatever happens between Oklahoma State and Baylor. I mentioned that Oklahoma State leads the all-time series 23-19. Oklahoma State won the last time they met, 36-25, which of course was after that dramatic 21-16 Big 12 championship game. In fact, Oklahoma State, that was early in the year. They looked pretty good, and of course they fell backwards. Baylor has won 3 of the last 6, which also means that Oklahoma State has won 3 of the last 6. Oklahoma State has won only twice in the last 14 years, including 2020, 43-3. And remember, this was like the 800-pound gorilla for a long time, and especially in Stillwater for Baylor. They finally popped through. They've been able to win. They've been able to beat Oklahoma State, one of their best wins ever in that Big 12 championship game. When I bring that up, Craig, the one in 2021, we're at AT&T Stadium. Obviously, McVay with the great play at the goal line. What else do you remember much about that game or that run that season?
I mean, a lot, but I don't really reflect on it very much because the last couple years haven't been very good. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm sure if you're a Baylor fan, you know, you'll reflect on that from time to time and remember it fondly. But it's a lot more fun to do that when you're still winning and building on that as opposed to taking steps backwards, which is basically what they've done since that game. Now, they started off well a couple years ago and then hit those skids, but for the last 2 years, we've been talking about them going the opposite direction of that Big 12 championship game. So, I don't know. I guess in hindsight, the big takeaway is still McVay, but it's just the way that team was able to step up and make plays in critical moments, which is what championship teams do. Just the quality of players on that team, the Jalen Petries, the Terrell Bernards, a lot of other guys as well that were a part of that magical run, and players stepping up and making plays when they were called upon, where the quarterback position in particular with Gary Bohannon and Blake Shapen and just the whole back and forth there and how, Gary led the way to begin with and then he gets hurt and Blake takes over and then he gets hurt and then Gary, helps to finish the job in the Sugar Bowl, even though that was mostly a defensive performance that got them over the top and got them that first and only Sugar Bowl win. So just a team that stood up and, swung big and landed some big shots and played well as a unit. It didn't matter what guys were getting hurt. They just had the star power and the mental game to go out there and get the job done. Even when it didn't appear that was really in the cards for them, they went on that magical run there the last, couple weeks of the season, winning games that they had to win. They put themselves in that position, and they did it and overcame injuries. And just, it was a fun ride.
Baylor last week when they scored 59 against Texas Tech and dominated that game, it's the second consecutive win that they had won at Texas Tech, and they've won both those games, 45-17, and then the blowout win. It was also the first time that Baylor had scored 50 points or more in a Big 12 game since 2019. And it was the first 50-plus point game overall. And that's when they beat Albany in 2022 early on in that season, one of those buyout games because La Tech was supposed to play in Waco. They backed out. Baylor played Albany. And the next year, it was Long Island. Garrett Ross, Baylor, 529 yards of total offense. What I loved about that was almost even, 255 in the ground, 274 passing. Your thoughts about that balance? And Oklahoma State prides themselves in stopping the run. We'll see if they can set that up to obviously let Sawyer do his thing.
No, I think definitely getting Bryson Washington back has been a game changer for Baylor because when you've seen him miss games, they've really struggled to get anything established on the ground. I think also it was smart for the coaching staff to realize, and you kind of heard Ryan Lingell talk about it earlier, is a lot of these guys are still familiar with being in that wide zone, so they adapted to that last week. You got to wonder if that's going to carry over this week and maybe for the remainder of the season if that's how they get that rushing attack established. But Baylor has shown that you have the guys back there to get it done. Just for whatever reason, it hasn't clicked. And then when you get a guy like Bryson in there who can find the holes and get that rhythm established, I think it opens things up for this offense in general. It makes them more explosive. It's something that the defense is not – they're going to have to take account of, that you can't just line up and it just makes the offense more explosive for Baylor. So I think having the rushing attack is good, and they're going to need it this week because Oklahoma State's defense is decimated, but at the same time, you can get yards on the ground against this team.
You guys trust Baylor to follow up what we saw in Lubbock with back-to-back games like that? When I say trust, they haven't given us that the last couple of years, but I think that there would be no reason why not to expect that again this week.
Yeah, I don't know about trust. I mean, I don't trust them to really do anything, but I believe they can do it. I don't trust them, though, to go and do it because it's college football. It's 20-somethings. It's late teenagers that are finicky and, super hypersensitive in some cases to, any kind of outside noise or results or whatever. So, I don't trust them to do anything, but I think they're fully capable of going out and doing it. And if they trust themselves, and that should take them a good way down the road to, I guess maybe establishing some trust to where we trust them to take care of those things. But yeah, they've given us no reason whatsoever to trust them to win a big game at home because they haven't done it in 2 years. So we'll see if they can kind of change that perception today. But again, I believe they can do it. Just like I believed they could go and beat Texas Tech last week. I didn't necessarily trust that they would, but they did. So I think they should go out and beat Oklahoma State today. I think they can go out and beat Oklahoma State today. Whether they will or not, I know I don't trust them yet, but, the ball's in their court. They're the ones that got to go out and prove it.
Garrett?
I think for me, last week, I was going to pick Baylor to win this game anyway. I think it's a better matchup for Baylor against Oklahoma State, regardless if I thought they were going to go out to Lubbock and lose, and I was still going to pick them this week. I like the matchup for Baylor. I just do not trust Alan Bowman to win games, and I think with a healthy secondary that Baylor has, it's a good opportunity for them to create a lot of opportunities to pick off Alan Bowman. So I think Baylor can win this matchup. It's been intriguing to watch how this has kind of become a rivalry over the past few years. And kind of going back to what y'all were saying a while ago, since these two teams have met in the Big 12 championship game, college football has changed vastly, and it's been interesting to see how both of them have kind of struggled, whether it was NIL getting that going and everything. And you went from being two teams that you could consistently see be in the mix to now you're kind of wondering and trying to figure out who your new identity is in this landscape where we're in right now.
Well, in fact, we've seen both of the coaches be a little stubborn when it comes to some of the new rules. And Oklahoma State, of course, lost some players that first year. They have not been all that locked in when it comes to the NIL. Obviously, Baylor, in my opinion, sometimes Mac Rhodes or others have disagreed with me, but I think they got a late jump, and then Jeremy Fudge and GXG and John Passavant, they got that going, and now very much a part of it, and we're able to keep players from leaving after the disappointing 3-9 and also lock in a few transfers as well. One thing about this series, the football series between Baylor and also Oklahoma State, it was very one-sided, incredibly one-sided. But because of where we are now with Baylor having that win in the Big 12 championship, remember Denzel Mims had that late game touchdown in the back of the end zone near the pylon. They have really played well. There were nightmares when Bryce Petty tripped over inside the 5 in a game at Stillwater back when Baylor had a chance to be a national championship team. 23 wins for Oklahoma State. They at one point won 9 straight, and then finally Baylor was able to start to get some wins, and the big problem was trying to win games, obviously, in Stillwater. Craig, your last thoughts on today and what you expect?
Yeah, I expect to win. I think that they gained some confidence from last week in Lubbock and were able to put some kind of proof of concept out there. Whereas when you're working hard and maybe even showing some improvement, but you're losing constantly, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around what's really going on. But that gave you a boost of belief in this team, and I thought that maybe they are turning the corner now that the schedule's easing up a little bit, and maybe it's not even so much the schedule as they're just getting better as a team. But I certainly think having played the kind of gauntlet that they did early on, that now that you are playing some teams that you shouldn't be intimidated by or outmatched by, and if anything, you might be the favorite in most cases. So at home, homecoming, coming off of a win, anything short of a miraculously, or anything short of like a miraculous finish by Oklahoma State to win this game, some like 60-yard field goal to win, I think would be a disappointment.
I agree.
That's something that what are we going to do about that? Some guy makes a 60-yard field goal. Outside of that, this last week's been fun. you don't win this week, it doesn't matter.
Well,
and it all just reverts back to what we were talking about the last couple of years.
Yeah, and then they have TCU next week, and all of the drama and excitement of trying to reflect back to back-to-back Big 12 championships against the Frogs, who have been their biggest problem in the last, decade or so. Garrett Ross, thank you very much. Thanks to Craig Smoak. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to KWTX. I'm David Smoak. Homecoming, Baylor and Oklahoma State, Game Day Live.
Central Texas Plumbing Solution is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. So when you need some help before the big game, call Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. When it's that time for your next car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgin Ford is the right call.